Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about my method of drawing. So I have developed kind of this hybrid mishmash way of drawing um, in my career because I needed to tackle some problems that I didn't really have great answers to. Um, I was trying to make these really large paintings on location without any preparatory drawings, and I wanted a way to tackle these big compositions and to fit everything on the page without having to do a ton of guesswork and without having to fudge proportion and stuff like that. I wanted to make sure that everything was going to fit on there from the very beginning, and I needed a way of measuring all of that in order to know what was going to fit in and where it was going to fit in before I even began the piece. So I have this kind of hybrid way of drawing that I've learned from really reading about a bunch of different ways of drawing, as well as using my own intuitive sense of drawing. I consider myself a pretty intuitive draftsman. When you get down to it, I don't really like to do a ton of measuring. I like to work a little bit more off the cuff, but I also really appreciate great proportion and pretty accurate drawing. So I have this, that's kind of why I've developed this hybrid method. And the method I've developed is really based off of the grid system, which I've only just started to lay out on my canvas here. But the way that I figure out a lot of my proportions and angles is kind of based on an underlying grid. So as I am observing my subject, I have these certain points that I have mentally figured out and plotted here, and I'm able to figure out other pieces of the drawing in relation to those initial points. And obviously, as I continue to work, that grid will expand outwards. Today though, what I will be doing really is just a pretty straightforward self-portrait. So what I've started with here is some basic measurements because I can never quite pinpoint the center of the canvas just when I'm looking at it. The actual center always looks way too low to me, but I like to know exactly where it is. So the first thing that I do when I'm mapping out these compositions is I get my absolute center, which I have just a cross in there. So I figured that out. I've also divided the other sections so that I have the center here, and then I have another tick here which divides this space, and another tick here which divides this space. So I have quarters, and quarters horizontally and quarters vertically. That is just a way for me to always be able to reference about how far away I am from this edge at all times. Having an awareness of the edges of the canvas is an extremely important part of understanding the composition within the canvas. So with that being said, I think I'm just going to jump right into it. So one thing I have done, you see me looking down, this is obviously not in the shot, but I have my feet taped, not taped to the floor. I have tape on the floor to show me exactly where my feet need to go, so that when I am reposing for myself, I can pretty quickly get myself back in position. The light is not going to move. If I was going to move it, I would tape the tripod legs to the light, so I knew exactly where it would be, what position it needed to be in, what direction it needed to shine in. Doing things like that just kind of saves you a bit of time. So it also, makes for a little bit more consistency, especially in doing something like a self-portrait, which is pretty difficult because you have to both draw and pose at the same time, which is harder than working from a model that way. So what I'm going to start with is get myself in position, and I'm going to start with some basic measurements. And the measurement I usually like to start with when I am making a portrait is I'm using my pencil here obviously as my measuring tool. Getting my fingers out of the way because I can see them constantly in the mirror. So I'm really pushing them down towards the bottom of my pencil in order to be able to see a little bit easier my measurements here. So I'm using just the tip of the pencil. This is the top edge and this is the bottom edge here. I can move my thumb up and down, but this is essentially going to be like my ruler, my measuring tool. And the first thing that I like to measure in a portrait is the bottom of the nose to the top of the eyebrow. And I'm also in the center of the face, so I'm finding a point right under the nostril because I have my head slightly up right now. So I'm getting this point right under the nostril, and what I'm doing is I'm taking my thumb and I'm putting my thumb right at that point, the bottommost point of the nostril, and I am making sure that the tip of my pencil is touching the top of my eyebrow, and I'm keeping my arm fully outstretched. I'm keeping it as vertical as I can make it. You got to make sure that you're not, leaning it forward or bending it back. You want to keep it, as vertical as possible. You see the way I'm holding this too. I have my pinky finger under here. That really just helps me keep everything pretty lined up and pretty stiff and stable as I'm drawing and measuring. So I have this first point here, which, like I said, I always like to get because that's kind of like the defining moment of the face. In between the eyes, under the nose. It's kind of in between all of the important areas of the face. So I get that measurement, and now I'm going to move down. So right now the tip of the pencil is at the bottom of the nostril. So my thumb is at the bottom of the nostril here at the first position. Now I'm going to move it down so the tip of the pencil is at the bottom of the nostril, and now I'm seeing where my thumb hits the rest of my face. And I see it's about halfway from my bottom lip to the bottom of my chin. And then I'm going to move it down from that. And I'm going to see that the bottom of the chin is about a half measurement there. So now I'm going to move up and see where we are here. So right now my thumb is at the top of the eyebrow, which is where the tip of the pencil was in that initial measurement. Now I'm seeing where the tip of the pencil goes. Okay, and I see that my hairline is kind of just below the tip of the pencil. So that's 1, 2, 3 and a half measurements. Here is essentially the length of my head. Now I'm going to take that exact same measurement, arm still outstretched, and now I'm going to flip it on its side. And once again I'm going to keep this as level as I can. Make sure my head is in the right position. Okay, that's correct, so let's go back. And so what I see, so right now I'm going right through the eyes, basically. So the tip of the pencil right now is at the edge of my head, the left side, and my thumb is essentially in my tear duct. So that's a good little measurement there. Now I'm going to move that over. I'm going to see that my thumb is basically at the edge of my hairline, right over here. So the second measurement, just to give you an idea of what I'm doing, I'm kind of measuring from here first. So this is the first measurement here, and then I'm moving that down and understanding where it hits the chin, and then moving that down again, and then I'm flipping it on its side and measuring this way. So I don't know if this actually lines up, we'll see. So get my head in position again. Here and here. No, it doesn't quite line up. Also, guys, one of the things that I'm what am I doing?